Hey, John Gilroy here. Data is the lifeblood of AI. Today, let's look at how a platform can help federal agencies wring as much value from AI as they can. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator in the virtual studio today. We have Seth Gardner. He is the Area Director for DOW Sales at BMC Helix, Helix. Seth, how are you?
I'm doing well, John. Appreciate you having me on today. It's great to speak with you.
My ESP tells me that many listeners know about BMC, but many listeners may not know about Helix. So let's, the obvious questions here, the big 500-pound elephant in the room. So what is Helix, BMC? What's the deal?
Absolutely. So for those that are familiar with BMC, know that we have been around as BMC software for 40 years
Long time.
and
Yeah.
born on the mainframe, grown up with our customers through automation, challenges, solutions, moving to the cloud, cloud first, cloud smart, and all of that. And so what's happened recently is there's been a conscious decision to get the two parts of our business, the mainframe automation, the service operations management, and draw a distinction between the two. And so BMC
Right.
Helix is distinctively the delivery and the group that works in the service and operations management space.
Yeah. And I think I tossed around the word AI and everyone's tossed it around. And I think we're at a maturation point where people understand that, boy, AI can provide all kinds of information about service problems and networks and all kinds of information about satellites and but what information to use. And so I see these terms pop up and you go to Google Trends, you type in different terms and I typed in data platform. And you can see the 14-year graph is, guess what? Boom, it's another hockey stick here. So a lot of people are talking about that. So from the BMC Helix perspective, when it comes to service management, so what value is a platform compared to just, I guess, randomly picking things? I mean, it makes pretty much sense when you think about it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I think that as you look across the landscape, you said it, there's so much data, there's so much technology, there's so many tools. The first foundational perspective is to understand, well, what's out there? What's in my environment? What is in the IT infrastructure? How do I get a handle on all of the things that have grown up with the organization over the course of, fill in the blank number of years that they've been around? And, when I hear folks at various places talk about AI, it's always about, well, we need to understand that the data that was being used is meaningful.
Hmm.
AI is only good as the data that it takes in, and to be able to understand what's out there, to wrangle those tools and the infrastructure to get a pure picture of, oh, this is my environment. Here's where the data is coming from. Here's what it's connected to. That helps inform really any AI. And then, of course, we have a specific perspective based on what we do on how that applies in our world too.
Right. And from when I did some research in the term this morning and read a couple articles, and I guess my notes are curated, high quality, reusable data sets. Ha! Finally, I think what people have used is they've just randomly grabbed data off the shelf and then they have problems. And then they call Seth and go, hey, this AI is junk. And you go, well, let's go back to the origins of the data, especially with some important characteristics like service operations for highly sensitive information at the Pentagon.
Yeah, it's important to make sure that it is clean. But again, from what Helix brings from the service operations is making sure that it's important to understand where the data is coming from. And our perspective on AI in the service and operations world really boils down to it's not just any AI, right? And so that's why as we get into thoughts around what is the agentic AI, use the word platform, we're kind of seeing that in some circumstances kind of disconnected as well, where it's not so much that there's a platform that's going to come in and replace things, right?
Yeah.
The tools that are there have been there for a long time. They do what they're supposed to do. They're very good at what they do, but you're right, it generates a lot of data. And so the question is, how do we help and how do the folks that are using all these tools make sure that they're taking advantage of the investments they made over the course of a very long time? And then to gather that data to create informative insights into service and operations management is really where we see things are it's already there, right?
Yeah.
And that's the AI perspective. from that I think we have here at Helix.
I hear a term being bandied about. I meet with software developers and have coffee, and we go back and forth and talk about things. And the word I hear, like last week, they harness AI. I mean, this seems to be, I think people like you maybe have seen, yes, you have to, it has to herd cats or harness or I don't know what, but it has to be structured so it can be used correctly. I think that's the tools that BMC Helix provides for federal listeners. Is that right?
Yes, there's a host of models out there, as everyone is aware of, and the thing that I think we really have done a really good job at is making sure that our customers are able to use the things that they see as best fit. We're not trying to force the hand of folks to say, well, you must use model fill in the blank because of whatever our own proprietary reason would might be. It's more of we want to meet our customers where they are. There's been a lot of work done on the side of understanding, well, what models would work for various use cases. And then, when we think about the AI ops and uh, the agentic perspective we bring is really, okay, domain specific solutions. Something we see a lot right now is the potential for building a lot of custom built AI work. And then does that then move in the direction again of, well, now there's a lot of things that they have to re-wrangle, right? So how do we help them gather all that together in the operations space? And I think the way that we do that is to make sure that they're utilizing their models of choice. It's the openness of how we deliver the solutions to our customers that I think is a great benefit.
I've never heard re-wrangle before. I've heard wrangle data. Now
Yeah.
I got to re-wrangle the data. We're going to have a whole lexicon just on organizing all this data. It dawned on me that there are people who are listening to this that are walking their dog in a squat rack, they're in their car or something, and they may not have heard of BMC Helix before and may want to get information. You got a couple white papers out there that kind of summarize these things. So where can they get these white papers? And I'll put this link in the show notes. We can tell them right now. We're going to continue the interview, but I think it's important to let people know.
No, absolutely. You can go to our right to our website, and I'll make sure to get you there because we have also updated domains lately. So it's helixops.ai
Yeah,
is the new
HELIXOPS.ai. And I'll put that link in the show notes so you can
yes.
download the white paper. I have them right in front of me, and it summarizes a lot of the arguments here about servicemen. Another question I have for you. So what kind of companies you like to partner with on projects for the federal government? I know you're a pretty strong AWS partner, and you'll be at the
Mhm.
conference, I imagine, late June. I'll be there recording podcasts from the floor. So what kind of companies like to partner with?
It's pretty wide ranging. We, as an OEM and a vendor of software, we want to make sure that we're working with various partners that really understand our customer space as well, which are many. And so we're not really, we don't really like to restrict, let's say that,
Yeah,
right? We work with large systems integrators, we work with small businesses, we have a number of value-added resellers as well.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
how we go to market, I think, is also how we approach our customers is making sure we're meeting them where they are.
And I'll bounce this off. I'm thinking about because I do 2 interviews a week. I'm thinking about like the first Tuesday of the month, just going to a small company in Northern Virginia here and going to their office and say, okay, get one company you partner with and how does this work and what kind of companies you're looking for. And because I think there's so much an exchange of information. There's if you go into Carasoft, there's 500 companies that sell the federal government, and I don't think they know what people do in the next aisle. So I think this whole question of, well, who do you like to partner with, or who have you partnered with in the past, and what are the strengths and weaknesses of this, and what, like if someone's looking at a proposal or an RFP, there's, well, where can they fit now? Now they may know where you can fit in, and
Hmm.
maybe it's possible they may not be happy with their existing vendor, and so it's a it's an ecosystem here in the Washington D.C. area that is. I describe it to people. I go to LA all the time and they go, well, that's the craziest thing I ever heard. I mean, one week we hate Seth, next week we're in the same bid as him, and the next
Yeah.
week it doesn't fit anywhere in our proposal. So it's a strange world there. So let's say you're working with another company and they're doing the proverbial digital modernization. It's one thing to modernize a donut company in Los Angeles, quite
Hmm.
another one to modernize some aspect of the federal government and the Pentagon. And drove by there the other day, parking lots jammed, lots of stuff going on. And so, how do you modernize while still maintaining the security in tight environments?
Yeah. Well, it's all about the approach, and we want to make sure we understand first what the gaps are. We don't want to come in and presume a prescription without understanding what the issue is. And specifically when it comes to security, I think it's good to go back where we kind of started from, is our perspective of security is you can't secure what you don't know is there. And so as long as there's a view, and that's part of our foundational strength, I believe, is making sure that we're enabling those with modernization initiatives to understand what their current state is. How does everything relate to each other and all the various tools and technologies in that environment to then determine what the gaps are. And from there, and again, this is where the partner ecosystem as well comes into play because, we recognize that there are others that do things well and we do things well and we can we can fill gaps. The whole concept though is to making sure that we are helping our mutual customers understand how to get a handle of the IT complexity as they look to modernize. Um, Operations can't stop. In many places, they can't even slow down, but the driver amongst most things that we see is trying to, everyone's favorite phrase, do more with less,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so how do we do that is first that you got to know what's there first, because that's where security starts and ends.
yeah. Let's look at a specific here with AI ops. And
Mhm.
so, can you give me an example maybe where your AI capabilities have what's the phrase? I know what the phrase is. Mean time to resolution. That's the phrase. So,
Right.
how has your service enabled mean time to resolution to quicken?
Sure. So, a good example that we can use there is if there's an environment where there's maybe, a dozen tools or more that are all looking at an environment, reporting on various incidents and metrics and logs from the perspective that the tool was built for. And you have a number of network engineers, operators, and everyone else that would, look at that uh, scenario and they would say, oh, we have a problem. We've got, a dozen incidents that are popping up, but we don't really know what the root cause is. And so they all get around a table and everybody starts passing these incidents around saying, okay, where do we start? How do we start to fix this? What team actually owns this incident to make sure that we don't have to repeat this again? With AI apps, we take all of those incidents, we correlate them together. And again, the visibility of how everything is interconnected is important to do so. But then we drive down to that root cause analysis to give a certain percentage of certainty to say, team ABC, we're going to start with you. If you go fix the thing that's being flagged in your environment, we have a certain percentage of confidence that the rest of these are going to be resolved. And from there, then we can make sure that we're empowering the team to know, oh, if this happens again, then we already did this in the past. So go start there again the next time. And so that's how AI Ops helps teams see what's out there and have uh, again, a percentage of certainty. That's what the AI component is, right? What is a reasonable percentage of certainty that if they find and fix that thing, the downstream impacts are going to be noticed in resolving the incidents that are also popping up from the various tools in the environment.
No. Last week I was at a office of a company in Tyson's Corner, and the topic of sovereign data came up. And I'm thinking about international and sovereign data, but I think the concept is an interesting one, especially in a multi-tenant environment. And so let's say you have a federal customer that has operational data in a multi-tenant environment. Now you don't have to worry about data sovereignty, but you have to make sure that it's protected. So how does Helix help with that?
So we deliver in a multi-tenant architecture. And so we enable and empower customers if they have multi-tenant requirements to make sure that they can logically fence off data from places, restrict through role-based access to make sure that the folks that are need to see the things in their tenant in the area of responsibility that they have is not bleeding over into other tenants and other areas of responsibility. We want to make sure that we are, hedging off both the access to the data from a Helix perspective, but then also making sure that the things that are assigned to let's just say, John Gilroy can only see these four things because that's your role. That's what you have. You don't need an access to everything else. And so, through our multi-tenant delivery with the role-based access is how I think we can make sure that that stays there. And so the data stays in the area that it needs to stay in.
Mark Amtower is very well known in this community here, and on LinkedIn this morning, he put together a little graphic, and in the middle of the graphic was trust. But I think Seth Gardner could put together a BMC Helix graphic, and I think the center of that graphic is going to be trust as well. And so, how does your company maintain transparency and oversight of these AI-driven activities? I mean, people may want to pull back the curtain and say, okay, how did you reach this conclusion there, Seth?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that is because we're working with our customers to bring the models to give that answer to them, right? We're not prescribing the model. So it's very much a collaborative conversation where I've heard it said that from our org that when we think about AI and agentic AI out of what we deliver, it's kind of like a car, but the customer is fueling it. We
Ah,
provide the car, the customer provides the model as the fuel to bring the answers for what they, and we work together on models and of best fit and AI providers of best fit, but the agentic capabilities that we bring require that model to be brought along with it. And so I think that is a large part of the trust factor is we are very collaborative. We make sure that we understand our customers' challenges and problems prior to um, prescribing anything. And we also work very hard to make sure that we're not pigeonholing our customers to an AI model or, you know, the one that they can ask those questions and say, well, where'd you get this from? Right. And then when we answer that, we say, well, you were using Gemini or
yeah.
OpenAI. And so, we work together to make sure that these things are brought forward to the customer so they can see where those answers come from.
While you're giving that answer, I was taking down notes and I was thinking about a sports podcast I listened to yesterday at the gym. And this coach said, there's a difference between, what do you say? He said, the difference between hunting together and hunting alone. I mean, we went hunting yesterday, but you can have two separate hunting. And when the way you described that work with the customers, that you weren't in different areas of the field looking for a pheasant, but you're both together in hunting the problems and solutions. That's really that's what I understood when you said, no, we talk to the customer first and then we find out what we need. So you're hunting these solutions together, huh?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody has a sometimes relatively similar sounding challenges, but how to
Yeah.
get to that result is going to vary depending on a potentially unique situation. And so, one of the things that I think we do really well here at Helix is making sure that we're listening to our customers. We want to make sure that we are partnering together with them to help them ensure the success of the initiatives that they have. And because of the openness of how we deliver our platform, I think it really makes sure that that opportunity is there to do so because it is, able to work in a number of different scenarios. The openness allows them to bring the tools that they have to the table, and then it becomes a collaborative conversation.
June 1st, I'm hopping on a plane going to Oklahoma, and that is, tornado season out there, and bad things happen in Oklahoma in May and June. I know that, and I think we're in a tornado here in Washington D.C. with AI and the amount of information coming in, and maybe a data platform is a way to corral that information or wrangle it or re-wrangle it. And so my question to you is, maybe the listeners are asking this too. They go, so what's the differentiator here? I mean, with this constant hurricane tornado of change in the next 4 or 5 years, how is BMC Helix going to be able to weather the change? And what's the magic? What's the differentiator that you can provide my listeners?
hmm Well, I do think it's the openness of what we bring in the platform. There are those that are starting to use the term even anti-platform, right?
Ha!
Yeah,
Really?
because the platform sometimes carries a certain connotation of, oh, it's a fixed thing. Well, we're living in an unfixed kind of world where things change so fast. Then the question is, as complexity continues to change, new AI models come out, my data's
Yeah.
growing exponentially. What do I do? I can't just replace my tools every time the winds change, right? And so the differentiator, I think, again, is making sure that our customers can take advantage of investments that they've made, tools that they've procured along the way that have been working well for a long time, do the things that they're intended to do. But there still is that question, well, how do I make sense of all of this? How do I make sure that when an AI model changes, things that I'm doing still work? I'm still getting the answers that I need. And so our open first approach of helping to kind of reset the IT complexity to make sure that they are able to deliver on the mission and the initiatives, I think that's our differentiator is that partnership with our customers to have that open approach to solving their problems.
Yeah, open-minded. I don't know how else you're going to navigate the changes. I mean, here it's the middle of 2026. Can I anticipate what the questions are going to be around Christmas? I can't. Maybe this summer. I don't know. It's just so much change going on. It's hard to know. What I'll do is I'll put a link to that white paper in the show notes so that people are listening to this and they say, well, I might have maybe pigeonholed BMC into one category, but now it's a little different story they're telling here with this particular application with HELIX. And they'll get a better idea of what's going on and maybe see you as a unifier, kind of like a traffic cop for all these different services that are coming in. Maybe that's what it is, a traffic cop kind of coordinating things together in kind of a crazy world we live in. And unfortunately, Seth, we're running out of time here. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Seth Gardner, Area Director, DOW Sales at BMC Helix. Thanks, Seth.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.